This is the tale you seek.
Smoke from a chimney is to blame for all that has befallen the people of Oriam. It was smoke from nothing greater than cooking fires that first betrayed the existence of a small farming community to the nomads. For hundreds, perhaps thousands of years, the nomads and our people had never encountered each other. If not for that accursed smoke, it may be that they never would have. The steppes are, after all, endless, and where they meet the lands of Uriel, they are at their bleakest. However, the smoke was there, and the riders from the clan of grass leopards did see it. Nothing can change that now. The cooking fire belonged to settlers from Oriam, who had moved onto the steppes the year before in search of land to call their own. However, the land was not theirs alone. It was also the wintering grounds of a clan of Shaul. The Shaul are a culture of nomads who wander the great steppes of the east in numbers rivaling those of the stars. Somehow, somewhere, two cultures, one of human and one of Aul, a close cousin to the common orc, joined to form a single nomadic culture we now know of as the Shaul. The Shaul follow a belief that the world has a balance. Just as a year is balanced by 4 seasons, they believe the 4 races balance the world. Each season embodies the strength of a race, and each race in turn embodies the strength of an element. The Shaul represent 2 of the 4 races. The Aul are the people of summer and fire, while the Shaman, the human half of the Shaul, are the people of fall and wind. As nomads of the steppes, these represent the good seasons, times of good hunting and prosperity. Winter is a time when the earth is bare and game is scarce, while spring on the plains is the time of floodwaters. These are the bad times. To the nomads, anyone who strips the earth bare and seeks to shape it is a threat. So it was in the unusually harsh winter of the year 239 that the smoke from an innocent cooking fire brought the attention of the Grass Leopard clan to a small settlement of grain farmers from Oriam. They were doing what was, to the Shaul, an unspeakably evil act, stripping and shaping the land, believing these farmers to be the source of the harsh winter. The chief of the Grass Leopard clan, Mithras, ordered his people to cleanse the soil of this evil with blood and fire. The villagers were unprepared for an attack and didn't stand a chance against even the small raiding party that Mithras sent against them. To the credit of the villagers, and the people of Oriam as a whole, they put up quite a fight, standing against the charging Aul warriors with pitchforks, hoes, and scythes. Every able-bodied man in the village stood his ground against the charge, making a stand for the land they had worked and bled for. Every defender of the village died that night. The women were taken as slaves, and the children, the things that were done to the children that night, none lived to see the dawn. The inhabitants dealt with, the raiders turned their attention to the village itself. Using their mounts, they trampled the neat rows of tilled earth flat, and with their bare hands, they pulled apart every brick of every building in the village. By the time the sun was fully in the sky the following day, nothing remained of the small village. You could pass within 100 yards of where it had stood the day before and never know that it had existed. Everything that the raiders considered of any value, they carted away to be divided among the clan. If fate had been kinder, or Mithras a little more drunk on the captured wine, it might have ended there on that bloody night. However, Tabrek, an especially bright half-breed craftsman, noticed many finely crafted works of metal among the captured artifacts, and questioned the slaves on how they were made. Failing to receive an answer that satisfied his curiosity, and with no evidence of metalworking tools, he concluded that there must be another village nearby, and took his suspicion to Mithras. Appalled by the idea of more dirtmen nearby, Mithras ordered the new slaves tortured until the location of the new village was discovered. What the Shaul learned of that night was not the location of a single village, but the existence of the whole of Uriel and its 7 kingdoms. Word of Mithras' discovery crossed the steppes like a storm wind and reached the far-flung tribes, despite the harsh winter that continued to blanket the land. As winter gave way to spring, Mithras gathered the closest clans for a council. They, in turn, called for a gathering, an event of such great magnitude as to only happen once every few generations. For a year, clans gathered, and the west saw nothing of the storm on its horizon. Finally, in the spring of 240, Mithras led the clans out of the steppes and into the kingdom of Orium. From the beginning, the Shaul found little in Orium that could stand against them as they advanced across the kingdom. They sacked and burned village after village, town after town as they steadily moved west, destroying everything before them. Orium had been a frontier farming nation with strong relations to her neighbors for generations before Mithras' arrival, and as such her cries for help did not go unnoticed. Their leader, King Rayans, sent for help from the neighboring kingdoms of Elithria and Cathia, and they responded by sending some 300 knights along with their followers to meet the forces of Orium at their capital. Unfortunately, none of them completed their journey. The gathered Shaul forces had advanced quickly through the summer, and with unfortunate speed they had managed to cut off the combined Elithrian and Cathian forces. Engaging them in some ferocious battle, they emerged victorious, leaving no survivors. By this time, the Aul had already succeeded in putting the eastern third of Orium to the torch. Tens of thousands of people fled the Shaul storm, refugees heading west to escape the genocidal horde flooding deeper into Orium every day. The defenders of Orium were defeated at every turn, and in the autumn of 240, the capital of Orium fell. Mighty King Rayans himself had become a refugee, and the other 4 kingdoms, Neos, Eretoi, Taborland, and Fornax, took notice of this and sent ambassadors to meet with Rayans' exiled council. Upon arrival, they pledged warriors and supplies to stop the invaders. Thus, the Uriel coalition was born. At about this time, autumn turned to winter and granted a reprieve. This winter was an unusually harsh one, and succeeded where the defenders of Orium failed. The Shaul were forced to halt their advance to weather the storm winds. And in that precious time, the kingdoms in the west leapt upon the opportunity to gather their forces. Their weather was unusually mild, as Orium's was harsh. Some people now hold the opinion that the mysterious wizards of Fornax have manipulated the weather. The Fornaxians did not claim responsibility for this, and it's just as well they didn't, for the season's bitter cold killed some 100,000 refugees. As the lingering frost of the winter dissipated under the sun of spring, the army of the coalition of Uriel reached Orium and advanced into the heartland, where it dealt Mithras' first major defeat at the site of the Dwarven mining colony. Realizing the need for a secure marshalling point from which to conduct the war against the invaders from the east, the 7 kingdoms committed vast resources towards the construction of a citadel. Grateful for the rescue of their colony, the dwarves offered to help in the creation of the citadel's mighty walls. The site, chosen for its easy access to everything the counteroffense needs, lies between the Dwarven mines and the nearby river Vol. The citadel was placed atop the ruins of an ancient city, so that some of the ruins underneath could be used in its construction. Mithras, caught unprepared for the strength of the counterattack, pulled his forces back and settled in for a long fight. By the summer of 243, the citadel reached its completion. As the council hall and the best hope of the 7 kingdoms, it has been dubbed Avalon, the Fortress of Kings. Meanwhile, the Shaul were driven steadily back towards their homelands by the combined forces of the nations of the West. After 5 years of continuous victory, the Shaul were finally driven out of Orium at the Great Battle of 3 Hills. The cost for the West was high. Over 15,000 troops lost their lives in the offensive, including King Tortain of Taborland. His son, a boy of a mere 11 years, succeeded him in feudal fashion. The newly crowned King Vortigern's succession was quickly contested, and the nobles feared an incipient civil war. The Taborlanders quickly turned to their homeland to keep order. However, Mithras has not fallen idle. With his forces bolstered by the arrival of warriors from 3 clans from the far eastern lands of the Shaul, his zeal was reinforced, and during the spring of 247, he pushed forth once again into the lands of Orium. Unfortunately for the defenders, full-fledged civil war broke out in Taborland shortly afterwards, preventing the return of the skilled Taborlanders' military force, including its prized heavy cavalry units. It was the beginning of a terrible Aul offensive by the spring of 248. The Shaul had succeeded in the recapture of the eastern third of Orium. The forces of the west, depleted by their own offensive as well as the civil unrest in Taborland, simply could not hold out against the fresh troops brought to bear upon them. Mithras began to push relentlessly towards Avalon, and ground was lost to the advancing Shaul forces every day. Elsewhere, King Vortigern, then a young man of 16, began to regain control of his lands. The boy king had proven to be an able commander and politician, and soon succeeded in quelling the civil war in Taborland. As the colors of autumn fell upon the land, so did the Aul fall upon Avalon, driving wild animals, bandits, and grotesque monsters before them. Mithras's horde descended upon the city that had sprung up in the shadow of Avalon's great walls. The inhabitants of the city fled, most seeking shelter within its walls, the lucky ones further west leaving the city to the invaders. For 8 months now the siege has continued, with neither side breaking the will of the other. That balance cannot last much longer.